I'm on team let the birth rate plummet to hell. I say this several times a week. But there are so many different reasons, and it all comes back to people not having foresight of the decisions that they are making that impact mothers and children. So this article from People says Mississippi declares newborn death emergency as a record number are losing their babies before their first birthday. Mississippi health officials have declared a state of emergency over the rate of infant mortality in the state. These forced birther states, things that happened after Roe v. Wade, all is culminating in a unhealthy environment to get pregnant and birth children. The powers that be that make the decisions for women, they want to force birth, but they don't give a damn about the babies or the mothers once the babies are outside of the birth canal. Now, I am going to do this article. I'm skipping a little bit in this article. I'll go back to the beginning, but I know that not everybody watches videos all the way through. The Mississippi Department of Health's declaration of a public health emergency in response to infant mortality is a painful reminder of the maternal and infant health crisis facing our nation, the March of Dimes president and CEO Cindy Rahman said in its statement. The burden falls especially hard on babies born to Black moms who experienced an infant mortality rate of 15.2, a nearly 24% increase from the previous year, while the rate among babies born to white moms declined. Because sexism and racism is baked into the cake, baked into the apple pie of this country. And people get really irritated with me because I will bring race and sexism into things, but it's inevitable because it's baked into the cake of this country. Sexism and racism happen, and many of the things that Black women face is exacerbated. Like, white women don't go through the same things that we do, and our narratives aren't told nearly as much because you start as a Black woman talking about this stuff. Why are you bringing race into it? Why are you bringing color into it? Because it affects us more than it affects y'all. And I just wanted y'all to see that, especially when the pictures that they use are typically of white mothers. All right, now I'll go back to the front of the article. It says, too many Mississippi families are losing their babies before their first birthday. State Health Officer Dr. Dan Edney said in an August 21st release of the Mississippi State Department of Health. The rate of infant mortality is the highest in more than a decade, with 9.7 deaths per 1,000 live births. Since 2014, 3,527 babies in the state have died before turning 1. This is deeply personal to me, not just as a physician, but as a father and grandfather, Edney's statement continued. Every single infant loss represents a family devastated, a community impacted, and a future cut short. We cannot and will not accept these numbers as our reality. Declaring this a public health emergency is more than a policy decision. It is an urgent commitment to save lives. The causes of death listed were congenital malformations, preterm birth, low birth rate, and sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. But health officials also, this part, sounded alarm over OB deserts, where obstetrics care is hard to find because of policies that were put in place by the leadership and lawmakers in this country. The people that have absolutely no foresight and are basically dumb where it comes to this, and the way they are making these laws, they are impacting the people that even want to have children, let alone just thinking that they're just trying to make sure that there are more kids in this world. They are impacting the women that do want to have children. Nearly half of all counties in Mississippi are considered OB deserts, per the maternal health nonprofit March of Dimes, which said it can leave families with little or no access to maternity care and putting them at greater risk for poor outcomes. Officials also announced plans to establish a standard of care for mothers and infants, as well as a home care system for expectant mothers at risk. This is the part where I was talking about Black moms and Black children's mortality rates. All right, it says, she continued, although Mississippi accounts for less than 1% of U.S. births, the state accounts for more than 1.6% of all infant deaths. These losses should be a wake-up call to the nation. I'm pairing that up with this article from October 2024. The U.S. infant mortality rates increased after Roe v. Wade was overturned. When you restrict access to healthcare, it can cause a broader impact on public health, said study co-author Dr. Maria Gallo. And like I said before, they usually show little white babies and they show white moms, but it's typically black moms that are having the worst outcomes in the United States. Since the overturn of Roe v. Wade, infant mortality rates in the United States have risen significantly due to the termination bans that have gone into effect, according to a new study. The study, published October 21st by JAMA, analyzed data on infant mortality from the CDC since 2018 and compared it to the infant mortality rates 18 months after the Dobbs v. Jackson ruling. Dobbs v. Jackson is the June 2022 landmark Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, which granted women the right to a termination in every state. This screenshot right here is so important. It says researchers found that after the ruling, overall infant mortality increased by 7% and increased by 10% for infants with disabilities. But this part right here is so clutch. Also, about 80% of those additional infant deaths could be attributed to congenital abnormalities. Congenital anomalies can range from mild to severe, and in some cases, babies are only able to survive a few months. The most common types can affect the baby's spine or heart. Because women have fewer options these days, they can't terminate even when they know that these babies are going to be born with all kind of issues, because people that claim to be pro-life want anything coming out of the womb. It does not matter if these babies are going to survive, if these babies are going to suffer, if the moms are going to suffer having these pregnancies. They don't give a damn, because it's not about humanity. They do not treat pregnancy and women and babies in a humane way where women are allowed to take responsibility for their own babies that they are growing. Like women can't make their own decisions. Like if this baby is going to be born with a heart outside of its body or a spine that's not forming correctly, why are you making her carry these babies and keep this pregnancy to term? Because the lawmakers have no heart. They are not humane people. Allison Gamil, perinatal epidemiologist at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, who wasn't involved in the study, told the LA Times that these findings showed that the Dobbs decision prevented women from terminating their pregnancies that would have otherwise ended in termination, similar to her own research. She recently led a more focused study in Texas that showed a rise in infant mortality rates following the state's ban on termination. Prior to these bans, people had the option to terminate if the fetus was found to have a severe congenital anomaly. We're talking about organs being outside of the body and other things that are very severe and not compatible with life, Gamil told the outlet. However, if women in these situations had no choice but to continue their pregnancies, those babies would die shortly after birth. Dr. Parvati Singh, an assistant professor of epidemiology and lead author of the new study, explained that the nationwide findings mirror those concluded from research at the state level, calling it a national ripple effect. The research provides preliminary evidence of the harmful consequences of federal termination restrictions in terms of infant mortality outcomes. I'm not sure that people expected infant mortality rates to increase following Dobbs. It's not necessarily what people were thinking about. But when you restrict access to healthcare, it can cause a broader impact on public health than can be foreseen, said Dr. Maria Gallo, a professor of epidemiology and study co-author. These people don't have any foresight, and they really should talk to women. The women that we're talking in this article, they know what's going on, and they probably have a little bit more foresight. But what do we see in Congress? A bunch of men, usually a bunch of men that are making these decisions. Join the conversation and let me know what you think about this one. There are many reasons that the birth rate in this country and globally need to plummet to hell. So this man says no nation in human history has ever recovered from a birth rate of 1.9. We're at 1.6. Yep, it's over. Western civilization is in full collapse. Now, he's seeing this as someone that is alarmed by things going on. He had plenty of comments on here, and women are shedding a light and speaking our truth about what we see, because men want more babies to be born. Black men think that black women need to be popping out babies. They think that, but they don't give a damn about the care, the maternal mortality rates of black women, how sexism and racism are baked into the cake of hospitals. They don't see any of that. They just want more babies to be born. They don't give a damn that men can just pick up and leave or whatnot, that single moms get castigated and tarred and feathered. They don't give a damn about that. Just have more babies. Anyways, the women in the comment section were talking, and I'm just going to do a few of these comments because we need to continue the conversation of why the birth rate needs to plummet to hell. Sophia Violet says, "Hi, woman here. I can't speak for all women, but I can say my 2 cents on what I've observed and what has directly impacted me as a woman. 1, medical system has failed us and ignored our issues. 2, prenatal care is not adequate. 3, we are the #1 deadliest high economy country to give birth. 4, lost our rights to our autonomy. 5, wages do not match our cost of living. 6, can't afford childcare. 7, housing costs. 8, not wanting to be trapped. 9, schools are not safe. 10, health ignored." That is a really good fleshed out list, but she's not done. But wait, there's more. Number 11, lack of postpartum care. 12, there is zero village or support. 13, the weight of our current government and state of the country. 14, horrible parental leave and expectations. 15, constant judgment. 16, lack of identity as expectations for mothers to lose themselves in motherhood versus balancing and building a career with support. 17, childbearing ultimately lands on the mother's shoulders. 18, mental and physical strain of pregnancy, postpartum, and raising a child, especially today. Yes, when are men going to take some of the work collectively? I know somebody has the best husband, somebody has the best dad. I get it. Collectively, women are shouldering the majority of the child rearing, child raising, all of that. Women are doing the majority of the work financially, physically, emotionally, those things. And what Nay Aesthetics says, I fear you ate this up entirely. Well done. Now we have a patriarchy Patty. Emily Jo says, you know what solves these problems? Getting rid of feminism and helping women see the blessing in bearing and raising children while staying home. I was a feminist that never wanted kids and wanted to work. I'm now a stay-at-home wife and mom to 3 kids and want a 4th. Way better than working and financially way less stressful than being a 2-income household. So feminism, getting rid of feminism is going to solve all of the problems that she spoke on. Here's what Sophia responded with. The problem isn't feminism and more so economic struggles. Being able to afford to have a 1-income household and still make ends meet is not nationally possible. Plus, being a stay-at-home mom doesn't remove our high mortality rates, lack of women's medical care or education, support, and village that is non-existent. I just needed to add that because you're going to have these patriarchy patties. You have men that are always anti-feminist come in and just like, you know what, strip women's rights again. You know, we got to go back to the time where we oppressed women if we want to get these birth rates up. That's basically what they want to do. Strip women of the rights that the feminists won so that we can go back to being under the boot of patriarchy. And I really wanted to get to this. This person, Valia, says men's rights don't vary state by state. Women's do. Men's rights don't vary state by state. Women's do. States really think that they should have the rights to put on women's rights or take them off. And I do believe that women and girls need to escape these hellholes if they can. Girls, if you use college as an opportunity, jump at the chance to get out of these forced birther states. If you are looking for a job, make sure you do not move to a forced birther state. If you are a young woman and you were born and raised in a forced birther state, you have got to figure out how you are going to get out of one of these states. So I'm just putting that out there. These states do not deserve women and girls because in these places, Many women and girls are not safe because they are pro-grapists. They will allow a man to grape a girl or a woman and just get off scot-free. But they will make the girl or woman carry that child to term in these forced birther states. They will let you die of sepsis in a parking lot because they don't give a damn about women and children. They want to just keep their forced birther laws intact. They will make you incubate a baby in death. You have no rights in life or death when it comes to these forced birther states. They will make you carry around an unviable fetus. If this fetus is not viable but is still, something of a heartbeat, they will make you keep that fetus in your body and make you be a walking tomb. And let's not forget, they will prosecute and have prosecuted and arrested women for miscarriages. Women have literally been put on trial for miscarriages. It is not safe to have babies in many states in the United States. Let the birth rate plummet to hell. Join the conversation. Let me know what you think. If you are watching this on TikTok, please go ahead and find me over on YouTube. I am Bourbon Bougie, that girl on the YouTubes, because I actually am still monetized over there, and I'm not monetized over here on TikTok anymore. So go ahead and find me over on YouTube.